Hey gang, and welcome back. These videos are brought to you by Card Conduit, the best place to sell your unused collection fast and easily. 401 Games, Canada's top shop for all your hobby and TCG needs. Dragon Shield, the strongest sleeves for your strongest decks. And Moxfield, the easiest way to store and share your deck lists. Amara wins the die roll and starts us off. She draws, plays a forest, and casts a turn 1 Hardened Scales. Morgan's got an island for turn, and immediately taps it so he can cycle an Ash Barrens, going to find a swamp. I just draw, play a Wastes, and pass. Benoit's turn has him playing a swamp and shipping it back to Amara. Amara draws and plays a Deathcap Glade, and then pays enough to cast a Strength Testing Hammer and ships the turn to Morgan. Morgan's got a forest and passes. I draw, play Tectonic Edge, and tap 2 for a Talisman of Dominance. Benoit's turn is very similar to turn 1 with him playing a swamp and passing. Amara's got a forest, and she then brings out a Voracious Varmint. She passes after that. Morgan's turn has him playing a swamp and paying 3 for Edric, passing once it resolves. I play a tapped Path of Ancestry, and then pay 3, losing 1 for Kozilek's Unsealing, and pass after it resolves as well. Benoit draws, plays a mountain, and casts a Phyrexian Rager. As it enters, he loses 1 and draws a card. Amara's turn has her casting a Deadbeat Attendant, and she gets to open an attraction, revealing Storybook Ride. She then goes to combat, and swings a Varmint at me for 2, and after it connects, draws a card off Edric. She then plays a swamp and passes. Morgan's turn has him drawing and going straight to combat, swinging Edric at me for 2. He draws after he connects, and then plays an Exotic Orchard. He pays 2 for a Simic Signet, and passes after that. I play a Sulphurous Springs, and hope to stop being the punching bag this game, casting a From Beyond, and passing. Benoit draws and goes to combat. I'm open, and he swings the Rager at me for 2, drawing from Edric. He then plays a Foreboding Ruin, revealing a mountain from his hand so it comes untapped. After that, he plays Pitiless Plunderer and passes. Amara draws and rolls a 2, which doesn't trigger any of her attractions. She then plays a forest and casts the Most Dangerous Gamer. It gets 2+1/+1 counters as it enters and opens the Haunted House, and she passes after that. Morgan plays an Overflowing Basin for turn, and then casts his commander with Gonti. Going to combat, Morgan swings Edric at me, and I take the hit for 2. This has Morgan exiling my top card, and drawing his own top card, and he passes after that. I get to make an Eldrazi Scion token on my upkeep, and then draw for turn. I play a Sunken Ruins as my land for turn, and cast Ulalek, making 2 spawns off my Kozilek's Unsealing trigger, and then pass turn. Benoit's turn is quite quick, with a mountain coming in, and him casting Grenzo, putting 1 into the X. Amara draws, and rolls a 3 for her attractions, which triggers her Storybook Ride. This has her exiling a Tainted Wood off the top, which she then plays. And she casts a Petting Zookeeper in her main phase. This opens a Tunnel of Love. Going to combat, Amara swings the Most Dangerous Gamer at Benoit and opens an Information Booth, plus pumps her commander. Benoit blocks with the Rager, and as it hits the graveyard, makes a treasure token with the Pitiless Plunderer. After combat, Amara then plays a Brotherhood Regalia and passes. Morgan draws and goes to combat again, swinging Edric at Amara this time and Gonti at Benoit. Before blockers, Benoit activates Grenzo, but doesn't hit a creature. They then move to blocks with Amara and Benoit taking the hits. This has Morgan drawing 2 and exiling the top card of each of their libraries. He then plays a Forbidden Orchard for turn, and he casts a Siren Stormtamer. He follows it up by casting Birds of Paradise, and then a Delighted Halfling, and then a Changeling Outcast. He passes once those are resolved. My turn is quite quick, as I cast Eldrazi Mimic, and with the Ulalek trigger on the stack, I pay 2 colorless to copy it. They both come in, and I pass turn after that. Benoit draws and in his main phase, casts a Plague Mare, which as it comes in, gives all creatures -1/-1, and takes out most of Morgan and my board. With the ability on the stack, I sacrifice my spawns and scions for colorless mana, and Benoit then plays a Rakdos Carnarium and bounces a land to his hand. He announces he'll move to combat, and using my floating colorless, I cast a Warping Whale to make a scion token. Benoit then swings a Pitiless Plunderer at Morgan, who takes the hit for 1, and Benoit passes. Amara's turn has her drawing, and rolling a 3 on the attractions, which triggers all of them. She gets to draw a card, has her gamer fight a scion token on my side, and exiles her top 3 to play this turn. She then equips the Brotherhood Regalia to the most dangerous gamer, and in response, Benoit activates Grenzo. His first reveals a Priest of Gix, which enters and makes him 3 black mana. He then activates Grenzo again, this time hitting Grey Merchant. With the Grey Merchant coming in, he gets his trigger, but Benoit responds to this, activating Grenzo a 3rd time, hitting Undercity Scavengers. With that coming in, he sacrifices the Priest of Gix to the Scavenger's ability, scries 2, and puts a card on the bottom and a card on top. He then resolves the Grey Merchant trigger, draining everyone for 7 and gaining 21. Amara then continues her turn, casting an Arcane Signet and going to combat. She swings the gamer at Benoit, and opens Fortune Teller and adds more counters to her commander. Benoit can't block, and before damage, Amara casts Hunter's Insight, drawing 10 cards as Benoit takes 10. In her post-combat main phase, she then plays Llanowar Wastes and passes as she discards down to 7. Morgan's turn has him casting an Arcane Heist on the Warping Whale in my graveyard and exiles the Pitiless Plunderer. He then ciphers the spell into Gonti. Going to combat, he swings Gonti and Edric at Amara, but Amara chumps Gonti and takes the 2. Morgan then draws a card and exiles Amara's top card. He then casts a Felwar Stone, and then follows up with a Mistcloak Herald and passes to me. I've got a Soul Ring in my main phase, and then tap enough for Sire Stagnation, paying to copy with Ulalek. I also get to make 4 spawn tokens with the Kozilek's Unsealing trigger getting copied because of Ulalek, and I pass once all that's resolved. Benoit draws, and in his main phase, activates Grenzo, this time hitting a Vampire Hexmage. He then does it again, and hits a mountain, which goes to the graveyard. He then plays a land and exiles his top 4, and I draw 4 from both of my Sire triggers. Benoit then goes to combat. He swings the Grey Merchant at Amara, drawing a card from Edric as it connects. He then moves to discard and passes. Amara draws for turn and rolls a 3 again, activating all of her attractions. This time around she fights the Plague Mare with the most dangerous gamer, scries 1, and exiles her top 4. She then casts a Tarian Soul Cleaver, and once it resolves, plays the Swamp from exile, and the Sires exile her top 4, while I get to draw 4. Amara then moves the Soul Cleaver onto the gamer, and follows up with a Power Fist, and equips onto the gamer as well. Going to combat, she swings the gamer at Morgan, and opens a Hall of Mirrors before damage. She also adds more counters onto her commander. Before damage, Benoit activates Grenzo, hitting a Viscera Seer, and once it's out, sacrifices the Grey Merchant to scry 1. Benoit then sacrifices the Vampire Hexmage, and pays the ward cost to try and remove the counters from the gamer, but Amara is ready with a Vines of Vastwood to protect it. Morgan however responds to this, giving Benoit a Spirit token as he taps Forbidden Orchard for a blue, and moves to counter the Vines with an offer you can't refuse. Responding to this, Amara plays a Snakeskin Veil, protecting the gamer further. The gamer then deals 16 damage to Morgan, and this gains her 17 counters from the Power Fist, and Amara passes after that. Morgan's turn has him drawing and going to combat. He swings the Mistcloaked Herald at Amara, and since she can't block, ninjutsus out a Fallen Shinobi, which then connects. Morgan then draws off Edric, and exiles the top 2 cards from Amara face up with a Shinobi, and exiles another face down with Gonti. He then plays the Whisper of the Wilds for the Shinobi exiled cards, and then casts Wild Growth and puts it onto its exotic orchard. Morgan also then recasts the Mistcloaked Herald, and he then plays an Ogre Slumlord from one of Benoit's exiled cards, and gives Benoit another spirit token as he taps the orchard. With nothing else, Morgan passes. I make an Eldrazi Scion from the From Beyond trigger and draw for turn. I play a Bonder's Enclave, and then sacrifice From Beyond and tutor for a Kozilek the Broken Reality. I then cast it, and on theme draw 3 cards off of Kozilek's Unsealing, and then manifest 2 cards from my hand, and draw 2 cards from that as well. Going to combat, I then swing everything at Amara, and she blocks the real Sire of Stagnation with her Gamer, and the copy with her Varmint. The Gamer then gets 6 more counters from her Soul Cleaver, seeing all the creatures get taken out. I then pass, while Benoit sacrifices his 2 spirit tokens to the Viscera Seer, scrying during my end step. Benoit draws and plays a Ghost Quarter for turn, which triggers my only remaining Sire, exiling 2 and drawing me 2. He then activates Grenzo, and this time gets Olivia mobilized for war. He then activates Grenzo again, getting a Canal Dredger. He gets the Olivia trigger and resolves it to give the Dredger haste, and then uses it to put a Vampire Hexmage on the bottom of his library. Benoit then activates Grenzo again, once more getting the Hexmage. He then sacrifices it and pays the ward cost, and finally gets to remove the counters from the Gamer. With nothing else, he passes. Amara's turn has her drawing and rolling 5 for her attractions, which sadly triggers none of them. She then plays a Forest, which triggers the Sire, exiling her top 2 and drawing me 2. She then casts a Ring of Colonia and equips it onto the Gamer. She continues by playing a Black Market Connections and goes to combat. She swings the Gamer at Benoit, opening a Ferris Wheel. Benoit has no blocks, and Amara casts a Revitalating Repast on the Gamer, giving it 2 extra power. She then plays an Overprotect to pump it by another 3, paying for the cost with a treasure token, which in turn gives it an additional 2+1/+1 counters because of the Soul Cleaver. Facing lethal, Benoit responds to the Overprotect, sacrificing his board to Scry. Sadly, he can't find an answer and gets taken out. Amara then gets to draw off of Edric, and adds a bunch of counters to the Gamer again, and passes to Morgan. Morgan's turn has him drawing and casting Felix 5 Boots in his main phase. He then plays Putrefy and takes out Kozilek. Going to combat, he swings the Rat Army at Amara, and the rest at me. I chump the Shinobi and take the rest. Amara takes 2, while I take 6, and Morgan draws a bunch from Edric, and exiles the top 2 cards from each of us, with Felix doubling the Gonti trigger. Arcane Heist also triggers twice, and Morgan gets to cast Barrier Breach to exile Kozilek's Unsealing, and cast Revitalizing Repast to put a counter onto Gonti. In his post-combat main phase, Morgan then plays a Soul Ring, and then an Ornithopter of Paradise, and passes to me. My turn has me playing an Underground River, and I then cast an Eldrazi Monument. Going to combat, I swing the Sire copy at Amara, and the Manifest token at Morgan. Morgan responds by casting a Sundering Vitae, destroying the monument. Amara and Morgan then block my attackers, and I pass after that. Amara's turn has her drawing and rolling a 5 again, which only triggers the Ferris Wheel. She phases out Gonti, and plays a Swamp for turn. She then casts a Cankerbloom. She continues by moving the Strength Testing Hammer to the Gamer. Moving to combat, she rolls for the Hammer trigger, hitting a 3, which has her drawing a card and pumping it by +3/+3, and then swings the Gamer at me. Before moving to blocks, I attempt to cast Scrib Swap and pay the ward cost, but Amara is ready with a Heroic Intervention, and the most deadly Gamer takes me out. The Gamer then gets even more counters off of Power Fist. Amara then casts Well Rested, and passes to Morgan. Morgan draws, and moves to combat. He swings out at Amara, and sadly, without enough blockers, she gets taken out, and Morgan wins the game through combat. Game review time. This was a great game, coming in at just over an hour and 20 minutes, and everyone got to cast their commander, all the commanders were impactful, and there was tons of interaction between everyone. I thought this was a great game with Amara protecting her commander constantly. We got to see Grenzo flip into some sweet things like Grey Merchant of Asphodel. Morgan's Gonti deck was very powerful, especially once Felix 5 Boots was out, and Ulalek was copying Eldrazi, which is exactly what you want to do in the deck. I think the most impactful card of this game was probably the most dangerous gamer. It powered up Amara's deck crazy, it was massive and constantly threatening everyone, and as soon as she got some equipments onto it, we were all in a lot of trouble. This video wouldn't be possible without the help from my sponsors, but it definitely wouldn't be possible without the help from you, the viewers, and my patrons. So I just want to say thank you for watching, and to remember, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.